didn't expect to find you two here.
Saw Gerrera.
I told you on Onderon you had a choice to make. Looks like you've chosen. Keep an eye out.
As the title aptly states, we've reached the summit on the Bachelor's second season. It's been a long road with ups, downs, and turnarounds, but at last we're here. However, little note for the writing team. When the fans bare their hands to you, graciously and patiently waiting for more and more from our intrepid heroes each week, like privileged little Oliver Twists, do us a favour. Don't decide to miss them, rip out our hearts, then fucking stamp up and down on them, then set them ablaze for good fucking measure, only to then pull your pants down in a childish fashion, teabag them and drop a deuce in the act, and by the end ask, did you like it?
Yeah, people say he's a cunt, but I don't reckon he's are.
Okay, you know how these reviews work by now, let's just fucking do this. We begin with our crew looking over the details of Hemlock and Co. when Echo informs them that he'll be on the planet of Iriadu for a summit discussion with other officials of the Empire. As they gear up to go, we get a rather touching moment between Fee and Tech, who expects her brown-haired, brown-eyed beauty of boredom to come home with a newfound father figure attitude, which immediately sets a red flag for me.
Fuck.
They then jettison off and arrive on Iriadu, where they manage to get inside Tarkin Tower, when we see that the summit is taking place, which seems to be a roundtable discussion about larger projects within the Empire right now.
Yes, I can definitely smell shite.
We see them spar over their views of the clones, with one officer feeling guilty over the state of how everything is right now. Tarkin concludes that plans need to be put in place to stop any possible clone uprising, when he just casually shifts over to Commander Krennic being in the room and wants to talk about Project Stardust.
What?
It's a week of just dropping random cameos in then, isn't it? The crew begin to traverse the halls looking for means to determine which ship is Hemlock's to place a tracker. Once Echo determines which one it is, Omega and Wrecker go to place the beacon, when at the same time Echo discovers a bunch of internal security cameras aren't operating. As Tech and Hunter go off to investigate, Omega is pinned, with Echo giving a little assist and creating a hilarious distraction, and Wrecker gives me the idea of people using mouse droids to roller skate themselves along the way.
Is he alright? He's having a stroke. What? I'm genius!
With both being able to get her out of there. Cut to Hunter and Tech, who follow the trail right up to the face of explosives and fucking Saw Gerrera.
You didn't see that coming?
Saw explains that he's been attempting to get the officials upstairs in one place for a while to try and put a dent in the Empire, when Tech points out the flaw in his entire fight by not actually using any of them to gather critical intel, and that they'll be replaced within a snap. They're quickly discovered and Saw makes a break for it, with Hunter and Tech running back through the base in a cute little homage to their takedown long takes, and meet up with the others to try and escape on the railcart. As they depart, Saw flies away, detonating the explosives and crippling Tarkin Tower, where the power surge stops the rail carts from moving, and we leave on our heroes stranded in the air while another cart full of TKs are closing in on them. So, all thrilling stuff, isn't it? I see you with that face of optimism. Stop it. There's a lot to take in from these final 2 episodes, but thankfully we're able to process a lot of what we see in this one. I understand that these 2 episodes were put out together to provide a more wholesome piece of content and not extend the break too long where the momentum of events could lose their effect, but honestly, this one works on its own with the information it provides. We're given a visual completion to the Imperial aesthetic at this point, starting to dominate the galaxy, where you can see everything taking shape with the muted tones, monochromatic outfits and accents to them, and the language, bizarrely, all beginning to look and feel like the Empire of old. And if that wasn't enough to convince you, we've just been given the biggest fucking link to the Empire of old, with Krennic and Project Stardust both appearing and mentioned respectively here. If you're unaware, and frankly you'd have to be a New Age fan to not be aware of this, but Krennic is the lead antagonist in the movie Rogue One, and Stardust is the Death Star. This is a big deal being mentioned here, as firstly, the concept will appear again through multiple threads connecting to its inception throughout Star Wars Rebels, and secondly, it means the bidding war has begun. Throughout Rebels and Rogue One, Tarkin mentions how Project Stardust is a costly and time-consuming project that needed continual validation from Krennic and Co. as the production of it was underway, and over the years, both Tarkin and the Emperor grew frustrated with it. However, Krennic was crafty and always able to pull funding from other projects to facilitate his own, steadily being siphoned towards this, which they would ultimately have full use of for about a week before being destroyed. Twice. And proven to become one of the biggest failures for the Empire. Whereas projects like War Mantle and Thrawn's TIE Interceptor program could have dealt a crippling blow to the rebellion by giving the Empire a larger arsenal to tap into at a regular rate. But while the funding was being drawn away for something like this, the quality of everything else started to degrade. Meaning that for projects like War Mantle, for example, it was predicated on the idea of inviting conscription soldiers with unwavering loyalty to the Empire. Now, I can see the logic, but where it fails and falls apart is that they utilise the clones for training to begin with, like we heard from Gregor back in Season 1, and where the clones became disgruntled by the treatment they were receiving and just being viewed as used equipment, and weren't being provided with any level of a pension plan, they started to fuck up their training. Plus, because of the Imperial laws in play, it meant that very few were willing to help train the TKs like the Jedi used during the Clone War, leading to an army of screw-ups so colossal they made Jar Jar look like a happy accident.
Good job.
This was some fascinating development on the side of the Empire, but what about the rebellion? That side we need to jump over to real quick, as, let's not forget, Saw fucking returned here. Appearances from Saw never get old, especially at this point in the timeline where we know so little of his history, where it seems as well like Saw could possibly become a regular for the series going forward, as the Batchers are now in the thick of it up against the Empire. The crew will need all the help they can get entering the next season, with a lot of their connections busy elsewhere, some turning their backs on them, and some at half strength. But as she's always done, Omega has managed to break through to a lot of people throughout the 2 seasons, and to see her effect possibly take shape on Saw could be interesting if she's able to achieve that, and if we can get back to the point where things should be. This won't be Saw's first rodeo with clones, as we'll see down the road, but to see how his efforts against the Empire could incite the clones here, and possibly give Rex a major assist in liberating his brothers, despite what he says here, is one thing I would love to see developed on. Saw is quite an obvious but also compelling character. He's constantly in a state of unrest at this point in his life, where he keeps giving and giving for this cause, but in the most detrimental of ways that not only costs him the lives around him, but his humanity and his soul. To also see him here, possibly close to stopping his eventual demise at the hands of the Death Star and Krennic, is rather bitter irony when you think about it, where he never did the job properly, something even Tech points out earlier in the episode, and as it failed him here, it will fail him then. Among all this episode thankfully gave us a few moments of levity, which by the next one is sorely needed in retrospect. And we get a heartwarming moment from Tech at the beginning with Fee when she approaches him, and you can see the sweat start to set in on him as he realises this is what a life could look like. In terms of my early speculations, I was way off with this finale, and I'm grateful, as I do like to be subverted by my shows and movies sometimes, if it's done in a meaningful fashion. As you may or may not be aware of, a lot of movies and shows these days have become predictable and running formulas, failing concepts and reboots that miss the point of what made them special to begin with, so this I did appreciate, as much as I hated it. All in all, this was a gentle, informative and nuanced episode that eases us in for a hellacious ride in the remaining 25 minutes of the season, and I'm not excited to review this one. Anyway, that's all I've got on this episode. I appreciate you stopping by. If you like this, hit the thumbs up and subscribe, as I'll always be covering Star Wars on the channel. And until next time everyone, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.